Excel has a category of functions called ISFunctions. That's not their formal name, but on the Formulas tab, if you go to More Functions, under Information, you'll see a number of functions beginning here that begin with IS. And some of these are really handy at times. A few years ago, I had a list of numbers, and I was tabulating a total. For example, in column A here, I'm going to go to the Home tab right now and click Auto Sum off to the right there, and redirect this so that it adds up the data here. And I pressed enter, and I knew that something was wrong here. You look at these numbers, they're between 2,000 and 3,000 mostly. So there's about 10 of them. That should be about 20 or 30,000 or something. It's way off. And I think a lot of you can probably see what the issue is here, particularly when you see similar numbers side by side. There's a 0 in here, or are there any zeros? Well, those are O's. Those are capital O's. This one has an L or a capital I in it. We're not sure what. That's an O also. Without any real zeros nearby, actually you might see one over in cell G10, but when you see them side by side, you recognize what's going on. Now, one approach to this is to clean these up, is to ask the question, are these text? By the way, in the example that I gave here too, let me take out that sum and see what would happen if we had tried the sum at the bottom. Here we would have found our problem perhaps a bit sooner. We press auto sum here, and Excel does what? It looks upward for numbers, but stops when it sees a non-number. And so had we put the total down there, we would have perhaps found this problem a bit sooner, or understood it a bit better maybe. Now, we can check these numbers here to see if they truly are numbers by possibly using isText, isNumber, or isNonText. These are very similar in nature, and they almost explain themselves. Let's just highlight all these cells together. And we're going to type here equal isText. And we're asking the question, in effect, are these text? Now, by definition in Excel, if an entry has at least one non-numeric character, it's text. And the answers we're going to see here will be true or false. I'll press Control-Enter. And we can readily see that these are not text, they're pure numbers, because we get the answer false. These are all text. That's an O. It's 2902, 34OL, or O capital I. We're not sure. 25I6, 25L6. Again, you get the idea here. Now, we could just as easily have used isNumber, and of course we're going to get reverse answers here. Equal isNumber, left parenthesis. We'll click on cell A2, and then press Control-Enter. And so the numbers are true. We see this here, and we see it here, those two cases, and in the last two as well. Now, isNonText almost sounds like the same thing as saying, is it a number? There's only one difference here, and this is the least likely to be used of the three, but we'll show you the difference in a second. Equal isNonText. Well, doesn't that mean numbers? Well, almost, if that's the term to use here. IsNonText. Again, refer to the cells. This time I'll press Control-Enter and then recopy. And it looks like we're getting the same answers as we're getting in column C. And many of the times that's going to be the case. But what if the cell's blank? I'll just delete this cell. There's where we see a difference. Is that a number? No, it's not. Is it non-text? Yes. It's not text, is it? It's empty. Now, I emptied out a cell that had a number in it. Let's take one that has text in it. This one right here, we'll delete that. And as you might expect, again, we see a difference in the two. But most of the time, these two are going to be identical. Now, sometimes we want to check for blanks. And many times we might be using an if function. Let's say we're going to adjust these scores. But if the score is blank, let's say that maybe what we want to do is just put in a default 99. So we want to check if these are blank. And we can work with positive numbers or negative numbers, but we're going to say the following, equal if. We want to test to see if that cell is blank. Now, you can do this with standard techniques such as check this cell, see if it's equal to double quote, double quote. Now, that works, and you might well understand that, but it's not nearly as clear as saying is blank. Right parenthesis. Much more readable, much more understandable. Is that cell blank? If it is blank, comma, we're going to put in a default score of 99. If it's not, we'll simply put in the existing score, something like that. And a right parenthesis there, Control-Enter, and we'll simply copy this down the column. And you see what's happening. Anytime there's a blank cell, we come up with a score of 99. Otherwise, we just use the existing score. And again, displaying this. Is blank. Even though it's sort of a reverse English as you read it, it makes perfect sense, and it's more understandable to a wider audience than G2 equals double quote, double quote. So we've seen how to use not only is blank here, but also 3 other is functions, is text, is number, is non-text, to evaluate data within a worksheet.